All right, man, peace. You know, brothers, as I pay more and more attention to this whole Kawhi Leonard situation with the San Antonio Spurs, you know what this is starting to remind me of? One of the classic films from my childhood, a movie called A Few Good Men, starring Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson. If you ever see that movie, A Few Good Men, it was basically about a code red that was declared on a corporal in the Marines stationed at Guantanamo Bay due to a perceived mental weakness on his part. Many of his compatriots in the Marines saw Corporal Santiago, the character's name, as someone who would not fit in with the culture of the Marines because he was just too mentally weak. So the commanding officer by the name of Nathan Jessup, played by Jack Nicholson, he ordered a code red on Santiago because that was his way of dealing with any form of weakness in the culture. And that is very obviously, to me, what has occurred with the San Antonio Spurs and Mr. Gregg Popovich, the psychological manipulator extraordinaire who likes to play the media for fools and puppets. He's very successfully created this cult of personality in which he can be an asshole to sideline reporters, but supposedly everybody laughs it off because he allegedly is this great guy. He gets on camera and talks about a lot of super liberal issues to try to once again create this atmosphere around himself as someone who feels for the plight of the so-called black man and woman in America, so that he can court certain superstar athletes to try to come to the Spurs because he knows that off of general principles, nobody wants to go play there. So that brings us to Mr. Kawhi Leonard, who I believe was being psychologically handled by Popovich for the last few seasons. And due to the fact that he's changed his management, he now has his uncle as his agent. He's starting to understand that he has to look at himself as a commodity, as an asset, and he has to put himself first, especially in light of what occurred with Mr. Isaiah Thomas. And of course, that has not jibed well with Popovich and his crew of cronies led by Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili, who basically are being used as proxies to harass Kawhi Leonard into conforming. Anyway, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
The Spurs cleared out their locker room after their win over Minnesota Saturday night, had a team-only meeting that was led by Tony Parker, and they talked with Kawhi Leonard about, their desire to have him back, that they need him, really implored him to try to come back here before the start of the playoffs. They want to reconnect with Leonard. There's a lot of confusion.
In other words, what they're saying to Kawhi is that we don't believe that you're actually hurt. We believe that you're trying to run some type of a game on the Spurs organization, and it's hurting our chances of winning a championship. That is what Popovich has convinced the leaders on that team of what Kawhi is doing, so that he could put the battery in their back to confront Kawhi Leonard, because he doesn't want to do it because it's going to go against the cult of personality persona that he's created for himself. But it all leads back to Popovich, just like it all led back to Nathan Jessup, until he was finally confronted on the witness stand. Unfortunately, due to the fact that most of the members of the mainstream sports media are under the spell of Gregg Popovich, they're not going to confront him and trace it back. But certain people are starting to wake up.
Confusion around the Spurs organization with Leonard, the relationship, it has decayed through this process. And the players were essentially reaching out to Leonard to say, we want to help you, we want to be here for you.
No, they don't. They don't want to help him. They don't want to be there for him. If they wanted to help him, they would leave him alone. Kawhi Leonard is not just sitting back telling himself, I feel great, but I'm not going to play anyway. That's not in his best interest to do that. What is in his best interest is to make sure that he's fully healthy before he comes back to play. Of course, as an ulterior, the Spurs are able to see what his value is, because they're a little bit above 500 since he's been out for the majority of the season. If he truly was trying to play games, he never would have tried to come back in the first place, when I believe he's played about 9 games this season thus far. So if there was truly nothing wrong with him at all, he would never have tried to come back in the first place. He clearly believes that there's something wrong with his leg, so he should be left alone. And all that's going to happen if you continue to try to push him, which he has to be very wary of himself, is that he may explode in the locker room and try to hurt somebody, which will take away a lot of his financial viability on the free agency market. So hopefully Kawhi will not allow them to push him into a corner where he feels like he has to snap or come out fighting, even though Tony Parker deserves to get his ass whooped for what he said. Tony Parker said that my injury was 1,000 times worse than Kawhi Leonard's.
And the message they got back essentially was, I've got good reason for not playing, and this continues on. They're getting to a point of no return here on this season.
That was our Adrian Wojnarowski on SportsCenter earlier today. Now, a source also told ESPN's Michael Seabright, outside the locker.
Now, remember, LaMarcus Aldridge at one point earlier this season demanded a trade from Popovich, and he was able to be satiated by Popovich's statements in response to his request to be traded. Basically, Popovich acknowledged that he was not using him properly in the offense, and he relented. Why is that? Because Popovich understood that Aldridge's trade value had gone down so much due to how he was being misused by the Spurs that he would not be able to get back commensurate value. This is why I stated in a previous video, expect Kawhi Leonard to request a trade at the end of this season or for the Spurs to pursue a trade. Because it's very obvious to them that he is not a quote-unquote Spurs type of player. Meaning he's not going to be a mindless drone, the type that would fit into a culture like that, like a New England Patriots under Bill Belichick or the Spurs under Popovich.
Locker room, players' voices could be heard through the door. That was sort of the tenor of that meeting. But Danny Green took to Twitter to refute the report.
Another company man, Danny Green. Another role player who's been able to extend his career playing in the Popovich system, who will do and say whatever Gregg Popovich wants because he knows that outside of the Spurs, he will not be able to last in the NBA very long.
Look what he says. He says, couldn't be any more incorrect, LOL. And then also I want to show you what Jabari Young said. He said, first off, ESPN has it wrong. The meeting was intense. It caught Kawhi off guard.
So if the meeting was quote-unquote intense and it caught Kawhi off guard, how exactly did ESPN get the reporting wrong? And look, I'll be the first one to tell you that ESPN, for the most part, is full of shit. But they certainly got this one correct. You guys tried to catch Kawhi Leonard in a moment of vulnerability and attack him because you assess his personality as someone who's going to be non-threatening because he tends to be very nonverbal. Those are the people that you may have to watch out for the most because their reactions may be unexpected. Be very careful, man. We live in a society today where everybody likes to troll and be provocatory and then act as if they're the victim when they get their ass whooped or they get stabbed or they get shot. Basically, in life, it's very simple. Treat people how you want to be treated. Mind your business when it comes to things of a physical nature, when it comes to a professional athlete. Clearly, he wants to play. You can ask him, hey, Kawhi, how you doing? Is everything all right? And then keep it moving. It's not to his benefit to purposefully sit out. So to try to ambush him in that way and pull him back into the framework of the team, into that cult mentality, it's not going to work.
Teammates just wanted to check on his status so they wouldn't hear it from media. He has support from his teammates, Spurs. So some conflicting things going on out there.
Let me say this. I'm going to say this again. We live in a troll society. Everybody thinks that it's fun and funny to provoke people, to disrespect them and to harass them verbally or in some other way. Please understand that when you utilize that form of human interaction, you may precipitate something that you're not going to like, but it will be what you deserve. Treat people with the level of respect that you want in return. That's how it works. It's known as reciprocity. Now look at Steven Jackson there smiling because he already knows what this is really about.
And I do want to say it's no different when players meet and everybody walks away feeling slightly differently than if you met with your coworkers or family. I bet you and your brothers might have different things that they walk away feeling and different people.
Right, but you know what? If I still worked in corporate America and a colleague of mine was excellent at his job and he was out due to, God forbid, cancer or some other form of malignant sickness, and I knew that he was out for a long time and everyone else at the job had to pick up the slack, I wouldn't be calling him saying, when are you coming back? The prognosis on the treatment for your cancer was only 2 months, but you've been out for 3 months. What are you doing? We're all overworked here. That's not my place. That's not your place to speak to another man and tell him that he's not really hurt. those are things that can lead to a physical altercation because you're calling out his manhood.
From people in the meeting might have walked away feeling a little bit differently. Stack, you have been in the actual locker room with some of those actual players. You've talked to Kawhi regularly. Tell me what you think.
I know from talking to Kawhi, he's good. He's good mentally. You know, I don't think he feels any stress coming from any place. But me personally, from being on the Spurs team and having my own situations with them, that pull immediate out the blue meeting that Tony and Ginobili put together, it came from Pop. No.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Did you hear what Steven Jackson stated? I'm going to rewind it back.
No question. That pull immediate out the blue meeting that Tony and Ginobili put together, it came from Pop.
Now, notice what Steven Jackson said. He said that Tony and Ginobili executed. So, very clearly, Steven Jackson is not a fan of Manu Ginobili. He most likely looks at him as a kiss ass and a suck up to Popovich. But he assessed, just like I did from afar, he happens to have been a former resident in their locker room on their team. He knows how Popovich works through psychological manipulation. He tried it about 3 weeks ago through the media. That didn't work, especially after that Thursday deadline passed. So now he's going to try to put pressure on Kawhi with his two lieutenants.
No question. That's the type of stuff they do. That's Pop's guys.
You hear that? That's the type of stuff they do.
Ginobili and Tony, and he teaches and works through those guys.
Yes, sir, because they're his proxies, as I already stated. They do his dirty work for him. He is Nathan Jessup. He had to declare the code red on Santiago.
That meeting caught Kawhi off guard, and if they think that meeting and catching them off guard is going to help them, they need to wake up, because that might hurt the relationship even more.
Thank you, sir. Because Kawhi Leonard, if I'm Kawhi Leonard, I'm looking at these guys like, okay, they have no respect for me as a man. So I can no longer respect them as men, much less teammates. Now, I have a contractual obligation that I have to fulfill. When I'm healthy, I'm going to come back. But after this season, I'm going to pursue a trade, because I'm not going to dwell in any type of setting or environment where people that I know are going to try to play both sides and are going to insult my intelligence enough to think that they can mentally manipulate me or tell me what I should be doing. No, you have a place, man. You got to stay in your place. If I say that I'm not ready, then I'm not ready. If you don't like that, you take your shit back to Popovich and tell him what I said. He already knows what the deal is. That's how that goes. It's not that complicated. And for them to surround him like that and basically try to emasculate him and tell him that he's not man enough to come back from that injury or that he's lying to them, that shows that they really have no respect for him. And I would hope that there would have been some type of divergency in how they chose to address the situation. I would hope that there were other members of that team that would say, look, Kawhi, don't worry about it. We're with you, even though some of these guys might have a problem with what you're allegedly doing. Because at the end of the day, it's none of your business. As long as you're getting your check, you're out there giving your all 100% every game. That's what you should be concerned with.
Catching them off guard like that.
And what I'll add to that is...
Thank you, Steven Jackson. Let me rewind it back.
That is...
Having my own situations with them. That pull immediate out the blue meeting that Tony and Ginobili put together, it came from Pop. No question. That's the type of stuff they do. That's Pop's guys, Ginobili and Tony, and he teaches and works through those guys. That meeting caught Kawhi off guard, and if they think that meeting and catching them off guard is going to help them, they need to wake up, because that might hurt the relationship even more.
Thank you, sir. And this is the reason why I chose to use this segment out of all the segments that I've seen on this situation, because this was the only one that I thought got to the crux of the matter. This was the only one that actually had an insider's take on the situation, that being Steven Jackson. And this was the only one that I thought spoke any type of truth that could be used properly as a backdrop, as opposed to pure speculation and trying to maintain the facade that the Spurs are always handling their business properly.
Catching them off guard like that.
And what I'll add to that is, whenever stories like this come out, I always think, well, who benefits from having a story like this out?
Absolutely. Who has the most to gain? Who is trying to utilize the media to change the tides of public perception so that hopefully they could affect Kawhi's earning potential in the offseason, maybe demonize him or get him to snap so that he can once again lower his earning potential. Brother, it's always about the money. It's always about the money. And the Spurs right now are upset because they don't feel like they're getting their money's worth from Kawhi Leonard.
This out. So I kind of feel like there's a very San Antonio slant. Like, well, see, even the guys want him to come back. It's trying to paint the picture that Kawhi is somehow in the wrong here.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
He's not wrong. If he feels that he is not ready to play, again, I asked you yesterday, Stack, is he a softie? Is Kawhi a softie?
Not at all.
Is he the kind of guy to cry over a hangnail?
Not at all.
All right, so if he says he's not ready, then he's not ready.
Exactly.
Peer pressure, leaking reports, all that stuff. It's like Stack said, that's stuff that organizations do to build leverage, public opinion leverage against a guy. But if he's not ready, he's not ready.
And once again, this is why I analogize it to the film A Few Good Men. Because this was the same tactic that was used in the film, and it's oftentimes used by coaches that have a military background, as are MK handling techniques, to try to utilize psychological machinations not only to affect the mental outlook of their players, but also of the fans and of the media. Because propaganda is an essential tool in making sure that the perception is what you want it to be, so that it can assist you in negotiations down the line, not only with Kawhi Leonard, but other potential free agents. You want to create an air around you so that people believe that they're going to be a part of something special. That's how that is being handled.
Why do you think that Kawhi's side hasn't been doing sort of similar things? Because we haven't.
Because they don't have to. Because at the end of the day, Rach, if I'm hurt, then that's just what it is.
Yeah.
I don't have to.
Thank you, sir.
I don't have to explain myself. I don't have to make up things.
I don't need a PR campaign.
I try to go back and forth with you in the media. What it is I'm hurt. Only I know when I'm healthy to play. And I think that's what it is. Like I said, I showed you, I talked to him. Mm-hmm. He's in a great place. He said he headed to facility and he's fine.
And I hope the brother stays in that great place. I hope that he does not allow them to take him out of his zone. Now, he will have to put his foot down in some way, shape, or form. But I hope that he doesn't get to the point where he has to get into a physical altercation because one of Popovich's lieutenants try to push him into a physical altercation. Because I can certainly see Popovich telling a Manu Ginobili or Tony Parker to get in Kawhi's face and see what happens, because I have little to no doubt that Popovich is very frustrated at his inability to read Kawhi. People who are obsessed with the psychological aspect of life, not just sports but life, oftentimes like to play the game of the puppet master. They want to see what will make this person upset, what will make them angry, what will make them sad, what will make them do what I want them to do. And when they cannot get to that level, when they cannot permeate into that level of someone's conscious or subconscious mental framework, they get upset, they get angry themselves, and they go about trying to see if they can push someone's buttons so that they can get a response, so that they can feel like they can read you in some way. And this is part of the frustration of a Gregg Popovich, who said for years that Kawhi is the most silent person that he's ever been around as far as a coach and a player rapport. And I believe that bothers him because he cannot manipulate him. So now he wants the members of the team or his cult to push Kawhi, either pull him in or push him out, make him look bad so that we can demonize him in some way.
That's all we can go by.
Okay, so you said they have to be careful because applying pressure might hurt things more than it would help.
It can.
Especially the way they do it.
It can.
Like,
because it's
all these, exactly. It's not just a straight up, hey man, what's going on?
And you guys aren't talking about the Spurs. Well, you're talking about the Spurs in this case, but are you talking about organizations?
Yeah,
or
like
are you talking about
case.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying when it's orchestrated,
right.
When stuff is orchestrated, especially again, if it's in-house, it's in-house. Mm-hmm. But we got to report. Since when does stuff on the Spurs come out instantly?
Absolutely. Beautifully put, sir.
Instantly.
That's it right there.
Since when did the most secretive organization in basketball, we finding about stuff instantly? All of these updates about Kawhi, once Kawhi's coming back.
And also that may likely have to do with many of the members of the Spurs fan base messaging members of the Spurs front office asking about Kawhi Leonard and what's going on with them. Because they're not accustomed to that. Please understand, when you're talking about a man like Gregg Popovich, he comes from a military background. The main member of that franchise that started the Spurs' rise into prominence was who? David Robinson, who was a member of the military. Then you bring in Tim Duncan, who has a very, very subdued and deferential personality, at least when it comes to basketball, to sports, to that team environment. Then you bring in a Tony Parker and a Manu Ginobili who fit right into the quote-unquote Spurs culture. And now you have a Kawhi who's kind of breaking rank. He's breaking rank and is making them look bad because they've created an air around themselves that they want to maintain. And it seems like that the fact that he no longer wants to relent to the persona of the team, they don't like to look bad like they're looking right now. They're barely above 500, and the feeling is that Kawhi should be here. Why is he not here? Why is it taking him this long to come back from a quad injury that Tony Parker has been able to come back from a long time ago, even though his role is nowhere near the role of Kawhi Leonard's, even though he does not do for the team what Kawhi Leonard does, and his injury may have been different, even though it was diagnosed the same. But he's just talking. That, to me, was the most disrespectful element of this story thus far, what Tony Parker said.
We're getting all these updates rather quick, don't you think, for the most secretive organization in the NBA? Unless they're trying to do it to pressure him.
Nobody that on that team right now definitely is not the get in your face, Kawhi come bring people in.
There's no Steven
That's
Jackson.
not their character.
Mm-hmm.
Tim Duncan was normally the guy.
Right.
Tony is not just an outspoken guy. Ginobili's not outspoken. So they had to come from somewhere, and I guarantee you it came from up top.
All right.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
All right, so how do you see this playing out? Because, again, this isn't a normal summer with Kawhi Leonard coming out. I know there are Spurs fans that are uncomfortable every time this comes up. I get it. Everybody would like things to go back to being just happy and everything going as planned. Things have not gone as planned so far this season at all. So you can't assume they're going to go as planned this summer. The plan was the Spurs would offer him the Supermax
Was that the
extension.
plan?
I mean,
Was that the plan?
you
Because
don't
San
think
Antonio
that
also,
going into
San
the
Antonio
season, they...
Thank you, Amin Al-Hassan. San Antonio wants to give him a haircut. That's really what this is all about. San Antonio wants him to give him a haircut. That's part of the quote-unquote Spurs way, much like the quote-unquote Patriots way. Tim Duncan was never a max player, just like Tom Brady has not been a max player for the New England Patriots. Tim Duncan was known for taking that haircut. Now, does Kawhi Leonard want to take a haircut? I don't believe so. And I believe that negotiations may have stalled with the team already. And this may have led to some acrimony and then some suspicion on the part of the Spurs that Kawhi is quote-unquote dogging it because we won't give him the max. And Kawhi may be telling himself, I'm not going to come back and play unless I'm 100% healthy, absolutely, because I don't want to exacerbate an injury that could lead to me not being as marketable for other teams, because this team is not going to give me what my worth is, and I'm going to get my worth somewhere else if I cannot get it here. Bottom line. So San Antonio, I don't believe, is necessarily willing to give him the quote-unquote Supermax. That is speculation on Rachel Nichols' part, which is probably called out by Amin Al-Hassan. I mean, we'll see. You never know. They might. But I don't think so.
They thought that things would go well. He might be an MVP, and they try to keep him. I mean,
They have a track record of asking guys to take less.
Thank you, sir.
Every organization has a track record of asking.
Not
guys
this.
to take less.
That's not true. Every organization does not have a track record of asking guys to take less. That's a lie. So you're just making that up to maintain that facade that the Spurs operate on a higher business level than all the other teams. That's a lie. Because the Lakers will gladly sign everybody for a max.
Not like the Spurs.
Not the Stars.
Not like the Spurs.
I would argue with that. I think
You
that
think every organization has that track record?
I think you can go around and there's a lot of big stars. I mean, we look at the big three in Miami; they all took less. I mean, there are
Not this kind of less.
there
Not
are
this
different
kind of-
organizations, and Miami has certainly asked guys to take less.
And
Well, you also have to understand that the situation in Miami was actually orchestrated by those three guys. It was not orchestrated by the front office. So they came into the situation knowing that they were going to take less. That really was not an institutional decision by the Miami Heat. That was initiated by those three guys. When you look all around the league right now, guys are pretty much pursuing the max, and you have teams that are willing to pay the max. The Spurs, as Amin Al-Hassan already noted, they're known for asking guys to take haircuts.
And it hurt them.
So I would say the plan, I feel comfortable saying the plan going into the season was that Kawhi would play well, maybe certainly be in the MVP conversation again. You'd think that they continued to be happy with each other. You would think he would sign a Supermax extension this summer. Things have not happened that way so far this season. It is going to be interesting to see if they happen that way this summer.
You brought up the Miami example. Those guys signed. When those guys all came up, what happened? Everyone was saying, I want every last dollar.
Absolutely.
And you can't even talk about Kawhi taking a pay cut when you paid Ginobili for $7 million a year.
By the way, there's been no reporting anyone was going to ask Kawhi to take a pay cut.
In the history of this thing, no one's ever been offered that amount of money and said, no thanks. If the Spurs want Kawhi to stay, July 1, they know what to do.
Absolutely. Show me the money.
But I'm just saying.
And Kawhi Leonard, do not settle for anything less than the maximum. Do not settle for not 1 penny less than the maximum. Because they do not respect you as a man in that organization. You are someone who has won Defensive Player of the Year. You won MVP in the finals for the San Antonio Spurs. And they have the nerve to have a couple of their old heads. One of them, Tony Parker, with his little bitch ass, sleeping with Brent Barry's wife. And you got nerve to run up talking about, my injury was 100 times worse than Kawhi. Kawhi needs to slap him in the face with a damn croissant.
Just saying.
And it's that simple.
Why all of a sudden is all this in question?
I don't know. And by the way, Chris Paul decided instead of taking a longer contract with the Clippers.
He wasn't offered this, though. Because he could
have been offered a substantial, almost $200 million.
I know, but Chris Paul can also make that money somewhere else because it wasn't a Supermax thing. Kawhi doesn't get a Supermax from San Antonio. He gets DeMarcus Cousins, and he gets not nothing, but he gets a lot less.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
It's a different situation from what Chris Paul was in.
Absolutely.
So again.
But do you think that's why? That's interesting. Do you guys think that's why we heard the stories, 2 weeks ago about Kawhi wanting more money from his shoe deal?
Absolutely. His uncle is there letting him know that Kawhi, you have to understand your worth, brother. You're in your prime years right now. How old is Kawhi? 26, 27 years old? He has about 2-3 years left in his absolute prime to make that money. And Michael Jordan's underpaying him for Jordan Brand. The Spurs are underpaying him. You just can't go through life saying, well, I'm making $18 million a year. I'm good. When you could be making $40 million a year. You have a chance to take that money and flip that and turn that into some type of potential for generational wealth for your children's children, so on and so forth. You just can't think about yourself here, especially when these owners are making billions. So that's what they try to do. They try to get you to think small while they think big. And we can't have that, man.
Yeah, if he feels like he's not going to get that money from the Spurs.
I don't know.
Sure.
I don't know.
By the way, the glass is fully empty now.
Well, that's the best thing that you said thus far in this segment, that you don't know. So just let the two men talk and just shut the hell up.
The glass is fully empty.
We started positive and joking, now we all angry. Well, I got your back, though.
Well,
we got your back, bro.
I think there's still a good chance that this works out as, was expected.
July 1, they can make it work out.
But you don't know yet, and it is not working out as it was expected to this week. That is for sure. Speaking of player owned.
But anyway, that is the situation on Mr. Kawhi Leonard. I believe that it may just be getting started, some of the acrimony. We will see. I just hope that Kawhi is able to maintain his composure and understand things on a microcosmic perspective. As people see that you're about to maximize your potential, they are going to try to hold you back in some way, shape, or form. And you cannot allow two-dimensional thinkers to alter your view of yourself or your future at all. Anyway, peace.